Hello, welcome to this lecture. So in this lecture, we will study design of compression member. And this is the content that we are going to cover in this lecture. So first, understanding the compression member. So the member which is primarily subjected to compression force is known as compression member. And so here you can see, as I said, primarily or predominantly, it means the member may be subjected to some other forces also, but primary force will be compression force. So those members are known as compression force member. So as you can see in this case, the vertical column, it is subjected to axial load as well as it may be subjected to some lateral load also. And because of this lateral load, it may bend, which is basically buckling. So this member is known as compression member. Why? Because the primary force is axial force. So a compression member can be horizontal member, it can be inclined, it can be vertical. So based on this plane, it can be of any plane basically. So if it is vertical, it will be known as column. If it is horizontal or inclined, it will be known as struts. So column, we have seen in this case, columns are generally provided in buildings. Similarly, if we talk about the trusses, so in trusses, there are some inclined members. So those inclined members can be in tension or can be in compression. So the member which are in compression, they are termed as struts. So if there is this horizontal member, if it is subjected to compression, it will be known as struts. Similarly, this inclined member, it may be subjected to compression. So this inclined member will be known as struts. So here in this lecture, we will be talking about the vertical member, vertical compression member, and that is this column. And another fact is the cross-sectional dimension of the compression member. It is generally less than its height. So we will see some other compression member also. So talking about the column. So now here we will be using term compression member with column interchangeably for the sake of brevity. So compression member that supports deck in the bridges are called piers. So in the bridges, the vertical members that supports the load, they are known as piers. So here you can see this is the pier which is supporting the girder, and this girder is further supporting the deck slab on which traffic will be moving. So these piers are also big column. Here also you can see these are considered as column. Now talking about the short compression member, if a short compression member with height less than 3 times its least lateral dimension placed at the base of column to transfer the load of column or footing or pile cap or mat, it is called pedestal. So sometimes we make a very short compression member whose height is less than 3 times of the lateral dimension. So as we are talking about the column or pedestal, so this vertical dimension will be known as height, and these two dimensions, this one and this one, they will be known as lateral dimension. So if it is a rectangular member, then say this is B and this is D. So we will generally consider B as the least one and D as the higher one. So B and D both are lateral dimension, but least lateral dimension will be B. So as per definition of pedestal, a pedestal is basically a compression member whose height is less than 3 times of its least dimension, which means this H will be less than 3 times of B. So that is the definition of pedestal. So generally we provide this pedestal below the column and above the foundation so that the load of column can be transferred to the foundation easily. So that I will show you in this diagram. So here, as you can see, this is the column and it is first resting on the pedestal, and then this pedestal is further resting on the footing. So sometimes we provide this pedestal so that the higher load, I mean, generally we provide this in case when column is subjected to very high load. So in that case, we provide this intermediate member, which act as a pedestal. So here in this diagram also you can see this is the column dimension, column reinforcement, and this is pedestal, and this one is the footing. Now defining the compression member, I mean defining the column as a compression member. Now as per IS code, the definition is given. So as per this clause, the column as a compression member may be defined as a member whose effective length exceeds 3 times the least lateral dimension. Now there is a new term, effective length. Now effective length, we will be talking about it later, but effective length is generally related to this length. Okay, and the lateral dimensions are, I just covered that in case of pedestal. In case of column also, these are the lateral dimension, and this one is the height or length. So when the effective length is more than 3 times of their least lateral dimension, so if it is B and if it is D, so if it is more than 3 times of B, then we call the column as, I mean, we will call it as column. Otherwise, if it is less than 3 times of B, we call it pedestal. So this is as per the clause of IS code. And that is also I have shown here graphically. So if we talk about the pedestal, so here pedestal has 2 dimensions B and D, and the length is less than or equals to 3 times of B, then we call it pedestal. Similarly, if we compare with D, it should be less than or equals to 4 times of B, and generally B is less than D. Now similarly, talking about the column, column has the length which should be less than or equals to 60 times of B. So that is the maximum possible height of column, and it should be less. Now in this case, this is when both the ends of column are fixed. So in that case, maximum possible height of column can be 60 times of B. Now, if it is a cantilevered column, which means if it is fixed from the ground and free from the other end, in that case, length should be less than or equals to 100 B square by D. And in this column has 2 dimensions, B and D. Both are lateral dimension. Now, B is generally less than D, but the limit of D is also there. D should be less than or equals to 4 times of B. If D exceeds 4 times of B, in that case, we will treat that column as a wall. So these are some of the specifications related to the column dimensions. So in this lecture, we will be mainly focused on the design and detailing of short column subjected to predominantly on axial compression. Now, what is short column and axial compression, that we will see in the next slides. Now, first we will see the classification of the column. Now, column can be classified on various bases, and we will be discussing all those, I mean, some of the bases. Now, as I have written here, column can be classified based on their shapes, type of reinforcement used, type of load which they are subjected to, and based on their slenderness ratio. Now, first we will see the classification of column based on cross-sectional shapes. Now, cross-sectional shapes of column can be based on architectural considerations. So, based on architectural considerations, we can have various shapes of cross-section of column. It may be of square shape, it may be of rectangular shape, or it may be of circular or hexagonal or T shape, L shape, plus shape. So there may be various shapes of column based on the architectural requirements and considerations. So that is one classification of column based on its shapes. Second classification will be based on the type of reinforcement used in the column. Now, in this category, there are basically three columns. First one is known as tied column. Now, tied columns are those columns in which we generally use lateral ties as a transverse reinforcement to hold the main longitudinal reinforcement. So that I will show you with the help of with diagram. So in this case, you can see this is the example of tied column. So in this, these are the main bars which are running through the length of column, and parallel to the cross section, or along the cross section there are bars which are known as ties or lateral ties, because they are provided along the lateral dimension of the column. So these lateral ties are similar to the rings that, I mean, similar to the stirrups that we generally provide in the beam, but in beam stirrups have different function. Here the same ring we use here, but their name is different and their function is different. So the column can be tied column when we provide lateral ties in that. Similarly, it can be spiral column. So in this case, you can see generally spiral columns are, I mean, spiral reinforcement we generally provide in case of circular column, and to hold the main bars running along the length of column. So generally we provide this spiral reinforcement to hold these bars. So in that case, it becomes spiral column. Spiral columns are also known as helically reinforced column. Then we have the third type, which is called composite column. Now, composite columns are similar to reinforced column, but in this we add some steel sections also. So this we generally do when we have space or size constraints and we have very high load. So in that case also we can use this kind of column, or say this kind of column is used also in some other conditions, such as when we have fire, we are required fire resistance for the steel structures. So sometimes steel columns are encased with the concrete like this. So in that case, this column is termed as composite column. So that is the second category of the classification of column. Then third is based on the types of load it is subjected to. Now, based on this category, we have another three types of column. One is called columns with concentrically applied loads, or axially loaded column. So as the name suggests, in this kind of column, load applied along the axis, along the main axis of the column, like this. So in this you can see the load is applied parallel or along the centroidal axis of this column, which means this load is exactly applied on this point. So exactly at the centroid. So this kind of column will be known as axially loaded column. Then second column is columns with uniaxial eccentricity. So in this case, column, I mean, a load is not applied exactly at the centroid, but it is parallel to one of the axes. In this case, you can see when load is applied at some eccentricity. So as you can see in this case, it is at exactly at the centroid. But in the second case, when it is uniaxially eccentricity, so it means load is applied at a distance E from this axis, but from this axis, it is exactly at this axis. So it means it is axially, I mean, it is eccentrically loaded only along this axis, but along this axis, it is exactly at that. So therefore, it is eccentrically loaded along only one axis. Similarly, if we talk about the biaxial eccentricity, so in that case, load, say when load is applied here, so here you can see this load is not along the x-axis, not along the y-axis. So in that case, you can see there are some eccentricity along, I mean, from the y-axis, and there are some eccentricity from the x-axis as well. So in this case, the load is not passing along any of the axis. So that in that case, it will be known as biaxially, biaxial eccentricity. Now, identifying columns in a building plan, whether it is axially loaded or uniaxially eccentrically loaded or biaxially eccentrically loaded, it is very important for us. Well, column with this category are very rare to find out because all the columns, they are either subjected to uniaxial eccentricity or biaxial eccentricity. But still, sometimes in the plan we can generalize with the column uh, to consider that as a axially loaded column. For example, if we talk about this plan, you can see this is the plan, and if we consider column at point A, and if we assume that the size of this beam and size of this beam, similarly size of this beam and this beam are same, and at the same time the load carried by this beam, this beam, this beam and this beam is same. In this ideal condition, what will happen? This beam will transfer, when this beam will transfer bending moment at this column, the same bending moment will be countered by this beam, because as you can see, uh, if we cut the section, if we consider that this is the A column, and if we cut the section of this column at this along this line, and if we consider this beam as say AD and this beam as say uh, AF. So in that case, when load will be coming on this beam will try to rotate like this. Okay. Now, as the same load is applied on this beam also, this beam will try to rotate like this. So this rotation will be countered by this rotation, and therefore bending will not be transferred to the column, only shear force will be transferred. So in such ideal condition, we can treat our column as a axially loaded column, because bending due to bending of this beam will be countered by this beam. Similarly, bending of this beam will be countered by this beam, only in case when all the beams are carrying same load. So bending will be countered, only shear force will be transferred, and that shear force will be treated as a axial force coming on the column A. So that is the case of axially loaded column. Now, how can we generalize our column as a uniaxially eccentrically loaded column? Now, in the same plan, if we consider column B, and ideally, if we assume that the length of beam BC and beam say this is say E. So ideally, if length of beam BC and BE are same, and if they are subjected to the same load, then bending of this beam will be countered by this beam. But if this beam is loaded, then bending of this beam will not be countered by the other beam because there is no beam. So in that case, bending of this beam will be transferred, or bending moment of this beam will be transferred to this column. And in that case, this column can bend along one of the axes, along one of the axes. Say, sorry. Say this is the column. So in this case, in this B case, we can assume that load is coming like this, which is lying on this axis, but which is away from this axis. So it is trying to rotate this, it is trying to transfer this rotation to this column. And because of that, this column may bend like this. So this uniaxial bending may occur in column B. Now, similarly, if we want to visualize the third column, which is biaxially eccentrically loaded column, so that column can be this corner column, the column provided at this corner. And this this column will be subjected to bending moment. The bending moment will be transferred by this beam as well as by this beam. They won't be countered by any other beam because there is no beam present at this location and at this location. So both the bending will be transferred to this column. So this column has high vulnerability against the bending. Now column may bend along this axis or along this axis. So it may bend along any of the axis. So therefore, the columns which we generally provide at the corners receive high importance. They receive high importance. So that is how we can generalize the types of column in a plan. Now, the next classification of column is based on slenderness ratio. It is again a very important classification that we generally consider in our design. So as the name suggests, cylinder or the long or lengthy column. So generally the columns, struts, beams, ties, these all are considered as a cylinder member. Why? Because their length is very much higher than their cross-sectional dimension. So that is why they are considered as cylinder members. Now, if we take an example, say if there is a small column, say if this is a small column and with the same cross-sectional dimension, we have another column which has high length with the same cross-sectional dimension. So when we apply a load at this column, say this is only, when we apply load say P at this column, similarly if we applied the same load P at this column, the chances of bending will be high in this column. Why? Because of high ratio of the length to its lateral dimension. So if this is the length and if this is the lateral dimension, so the ratio will be higher in this case. So this ratio, this ratio, effective length to the least lateral dimension, this ratio is known as slenderness ratio. So bending or buckling effect will be higher in this column because the slenderness ratio will be higher in this case. So based on this ratio, we classify our column as short column and long column. So as I said, slenderness is basically a geometrical property of a compression member which is related to the ratio of effective length to its lateral dimension. And if the ratio, this ratio is called slenderness ratio, and it also provides a measure of vulnerability to failure of the column by buckling. So as I just shown you with the help of diagram. So if higher is the slenderness ratio, higher will be the chances of buckling. So column with low slenderness ratio will utilize its full strength. So if the column is short, then when we apply the load, so there are chances that it won't buckle, but it will actually crush. It will be crushed. So failure due to crushing will be the ideal failure. So in that case, we will say that it is failed after utilizing its full strength. But in case of column having high slenderness ratio, they don't use or they don't utilize their full strength because of the high lambda value. Generally, we express this ratio as lambda. So if lambda value is high, they don't use or they don't utilize their full strength. So as I have written, on the other hand, if column is having very high slenderness ratio, they are in danger of buckling under relatively low compressive load, and therefore they fail suddenly. Now, based on the slenderness ratio, columns can be classified as short column. So short column are the column which generally fail after reaching their ultimate load carrying capacity of the column. Similarly, the slender or long column, so these types of column are generally fail suddenly at relatively low compressive load. Now, the point is, how do we classify a particular column as a short or long? So IS code has recommended some value. So now we will see that. So as per clause of IS code, as per this clause, it says a compression member may be classified as a short column if its slenderness ratio with respect to the major principal axis, say LEX by DX, as well as minor principal axis LEY by DY, are both less than 12. Or in other words, I would say, if the value of slenderness ratio is less than 12, then we classify the column as short column. Otherwise, it will be a long column. Now here, what is LEX DX? So if I make a diagram, I will show you that with the help of diagram. So here, if this is a column, say this is x-axis and this is y-axis. So now length of column or effective length of column along the x-axis. So I may write this as L EX. Similarly, the length of column along the y-axis, I mean y-axis, yes. So it may be termed as LEY. Now these both of these value may be same or may not be same. Now it depends on the connectivity of this column with beam. So if beam coming from this end and coming from this end, if both the beam have same depth, in that case LEY and LEX will be same. If their depth is different, in that case LEY and LEX will be different. And now talking about the dx and dy. Now what is dx and dy? So that I will show you. Now dx and dy are basically the cross-sectional dimension. Now how do we classify that, whether it is dx or dy? Now the dimension which, see, if axis is running like this, then the dimension which is perpendicular to this axis will be termed as dx, because this is x-axis. Similarly, this axis, if it is running like this, then the dimension perpendicular to this will be termed as dy. Why? Because if the column is bending along the x-axis, now as you can see, this is the x-axis, which means it will bend when I say that column will bend along x-axis. So in that case, it will be bending like this. So as you can see, this bending is occurring along the x-axis. Similarly, if we talk about bending along the y-axis, so in that case, how bending will occur? So in this case, if I say that bending is occurring along the y-axis, so in y-axis, it will be something like this and like this. While in case of x-axis, it will be like this and like this. So basically bending along this axis will be like this. Bending along this will be something like this. So bending along both the axis. Now, how do we classify whether there will be, one axis will be major axis and the other axis will be minor axis. Now, as you can see, if column is bending along this axis, so which means it is bending something like this. So in this case, this dimension is to be seen. And similarly, if it is bending along this axis, so in that case it will be bending, so this part will be bending. So in that case this dimension is to be seen. So if this dimension, say this is d dimension and this is d, so if this dimension is less than d, then in that case this axis will be known as minor axis, because chances of bending of this column will be higher along the minor axis because the depth is higher. So there are less chances that column will buckle along this axis. Okay, so this is how we classify minor axis, and this will be as major axis. So chances of buckling of column along the major axis will be less. Generally, it will buckle along the minor axis only, and minor axis will be along the lesser dimension. So if a column is rectangular in size and if it is having less dimension in one of the axis and higher dimension in this, then it will fail along this axis. So whether it is x axis or y axis, it will fail along this, because parallel to this dimension is lesser than this dimension. So this is how we classify whether a column is having minor axis or major axis and how it will be failing. So this understanding of axis is very important when we place columns in our plan. So that is how this we calculate Ley by dy or Lex by dx. So dx is the dimension along the x-axis, dy is the dimension along the y-axis. So if the ratio is less than 12, it will be known as short column, otherwise it will be long column. So we will continue our discussion in the next part. Thank you.